Gym leaders are the first real challenge you encounter in Pokemon games, and the more badges you get, the tougher they are, right? But what if an earlier gym leader, like Misty, is actually far stronger than her second gym leader spot would indicate? Could she overcome other gyms and get a gym leader promotion, presumably with a decent pay raise? Unlike my real job, which doesn't even keep up with inflation. But that's a topic for another day. For today, I want to see how far each Kanto gym leader can go. First, can they even make it back to their gym? Can they defeat all their gym trainers to prove they deserve to be that leader? And finally, can they then go and defeat every other gym leader, becoming the strongest in Kanto? The rules here are quite simple. I'll start the game with all of the current gym leaders' Pokemon in their base forms. They will be allowed to evolve as long as my team matches theirs when I get to their gym. In addition, I play on set mode and no held items, with one exception we'll get to later. I will allow healing items, but only the same ones the leader I'm currently facing has. I'm also imposing gym leader level caps. Before we begin, which Kanto gym leader do you think will have the easiest time overcoming all of the others? We begin this journey, obviously, as Brock, the first gym leader. He only has 2 Pokemon on his team, a rock and a much bigger one. To make this video more concise, which I've obviously already failed at, I am skipping everything except for battles in gyms. I pretend that rivals and other trainers aren't really a thing. So for Brock to earn his place as the Pewter City gym leader, I first need to beat up his fanboy Liam, who is a bit obsessed. The level cap here is 14, so both Onix and Geodude are at that level. Now Onix isn't that great, that's likely not a surprise to you, but he does learn Screech. A few of those, and Liam's lamer Geodude is crushed with some rocks. Sandshrew is also screeched several times and tackled. Onix keeps missing, thanks to Sand Attack, meaning I swap to Geodude for one more rock throw. Having beaten the single gym trainer here, Brock has officially earned his place as the Pewter City gym leader. I don't have to battle the actual gym leader here, because it wouldn't make any sense for Brock to battle himself. Either way, he's not content to stay here. Instead, to become the Cerulean City gym leader, all he needs to do is defeat the current gym leader. Now you may be wondering, how in the world can these Mons possibly defeat Misty? Well, I was hoping you could tell me, because as far as I can see, it's not possible. I mean, Onix does outspeed Staryu, but both of my rocks fall in a single water pulse. And there's no reason Misty would use any other moves since it's a guaranteed knockout. Starting with Geodude doesn't make it any more likely either. I do realize that with a crit rock throw, Onix could take out her first star, so I try again, and again, and again, some 17 times, until eventually rock throw is a crit. Unfortunately, this brings out the much stronger star for the first time, and I'm sure you know what's coming next. If Sturdy worked how it does in future generations, I might have a chance. As it is, I don't. So Brock is stuck as the worst gym leader in Kanto, in a stagnating job never to get a raise. I'm sure none of us know what that's like, am I right? Anyway, let's start all over again, but now with Misty. She also only has 2 Pokemon, though they're quite a bit better than Brock's. Misty does have a Starmie on her team at the second gym, but I'll start with 2 Staryus to give Brock a false sense of security. I am intimately familiar with how this battle goes. I just lived it several times over. Though it's nice being on the winning side for once, thanks to my water gunning Staryu. Before facing the Cerulean gym trainers to become their leader, I go ahead and evolve one of my Staryus. Whenever I get to the gym where that particular leader comes from, my team must match what the leader had, meaning I cannot evolve the second Staryu just yet. Now even though Lewis's Pokemon resist water moves, Starmie is just so much stronger that Bubble Beam knocks them all out. This random picnicker hanging out in the gym, Diana, has a Goldeen, which is a bit stronger than Lewis's Mons, but nothing to write home about. So I win, and Misty has earned her rightful place as the second gym leader very easily. I'm sure you all know what's coming next though, Lieutenant Surge. Since I typically challenge him before heading through Rock Tunnel, this means I don't legitimately have access to another Water Stone. I keep this Staryu as is for one more battle. It starts with Bubble Beam, taking some damage from Voltorb, but nothing crazy. I do have Camouflage to change to Normal type as a backup if need be. Pikachu is Bubble Beam too, bringing us to Raichu already, who finally knocks out Staryu. Now it's time for Starmie. Bubble Beam does not do a ton, and Starmie is paralyzed. However, since Surge has a single full heal, I'm allowed to use one as well. With paralysis healed, Starmie finishes off Raichu with one more hit. I honestly did not expect to beat Surge first try, but since I did, Misty just got a promotion. As does Staryu, once I get to Celadon and Water Stones are up for grabs. You might think Erika is going to be even more of a concern than Surge, since her Grass Mons resist water in addition to having super effective moves. However, a simple Psychic TM makes this battle incredibly easy. There is only one Psychic TM though, so henceforth this Mon shall be known as Psychic Star. Vileplume does have enough special defense to survive a hit, and paralyzes. I heal it, at the same time Erika heals, then Psychic again to knock it out. Finally, Tangela falls in a single hit as well, even though it's not super effective. So yeah, that was really easy. Now we're on to Koga, after getting Surf for both of my stars. As you might have guessed, Psychic Star leads the way with Psychic. Muck is just being a jerk here, but with Minimize and Healing, he's obviously trying to stall out my Psychics, so Psychic Star swaps to Surf instead. The last two Mons are Psychic, making this yet another very simple gym win. For Sabrina, I don't use Psychic Star. I use the other one, who hasn't yet earned a name. With Stab Surf, Nameless Star makes short work of both Kadabra and Venomoth, even as Sabrina wastes her healing items. I was concerned about the high special defense on the other half of her team, but Mr. Mime and Alakazam are also just surfed, hitting with a rather pathetic Psychic that Nameless Star shrugs off. And here I thought the later gym leaders would be getting more difficult, but not so much. If you thought that was easy though, get ready for the Fire Leader. I don't have any quick wit commentary here, except to say, suck it Blaine, you just got surfed. Can we make that a thing? Anyway, still using Nameless Star, I haven't needed Psychic Star for several gyms now, Giovanni is similarly surfed. It takes slightly longer than Blaine, but that's only because he has more Pokemon. That was a bit of an anticlimactic end, if you ask me. But undoubtedly, Misty has proven that she is a strong enough trainer, even with only 2 Pokemon, that being the second gym leader is a waste of her skills. She belongs as the 8th gym leader. Or does she? Perhaps she is even Elite 4 material. Maybe she's even good enough to become the champion. Nameless Star has now learned Thunderbolt, easily defeating Lorelei's Dugong, though it's confused against Lapras. Rather than try to wait it out, I pivot to Psychic Star, who also knows Thunderbolt. Who would have guessed? Since the Elite 4 trainers each have one Citrus Berry, I'm also allowed one each battle. That berry, and full restore healing, did nothing but waste my time as Lapras is then crit and falls. Cloyster is one-shot, and Slowbro survives just long enough to surf. Hey, I am the surfer here, not you. Jinx does manage to put Psychic Star to sleep, who fails to wake up for several turns. Okay, time for my first full restore of the battle. Each Elite 4 member has 2, so I'm allowed the same, and I promptly use my second thanks to another lame Lovely Kiss. Lorelei is defeated, but it does mark the first time I've had to use any healing items since the Erika battle. I'm hoping for Bruno that Psychic Star will solo his team. We all know how an Onix v Starmie battle goes, right? The Hitmons don't pose any more of a threat, as they are both one-shot with Psychic. The only one who survives an initial hit at all is Machamp, and only a single time. After a bulk up heal, Forearms is then Psychicked, and that's it. That went unsurprisingly well. For Agatha and her Ghost Poison types, it should come as no surprise that Psychic Star, once again, blows through them with, well, Psychic. The name was kind of a giveaway. This brings us to Dragon Tamer Lance, who would be concerning if Starmie wasn't such a goated Mon. Okay, I can't say that, I'm too old, that just sounds ridiculous. Either way, Nameless begins by Thunderbolting Gyarados as expected. The 2 small dragons are Ice Beamed, easily enough, and then the larger flying dragon is also Ice Beamed. Finally, Aerodactyl actually does something with Ancient Power, but it's far too little, far too late. Even an Omni Boost would not have helped him here. These Elite 4 members are such a joke. Even though I've been skipping rival battles this whole time, I kind of need to show the championship battle because it would be weird if I didn't. As far as the game is concerned, I started with Squirtle, so he will have his Venusaur team. Thanks to a few sand attacks on Psychic Star, Nameless is then tasked with defeating Pidgeot. I had expected Venusaur to come out next, but Arcanine is fine too. I wanted Psychic Star to defeat Venusaur with its namesake move, but a few Ice Beams gets the job done all the same. It also knows Thunderbolt for Gyarados. Alakazam wastes his one turn at life to foresee an attack that will never come, because one more Surf on Rhydon finishes the battle, as Misty becomes the undisputed champion of the Kanto region. Because Starmie is such an incredible Pokemon, I didn't doubt this would be possible, but I also didn't expect it to be so ridiculously easy. I only had 2 Pokemon after all, but didn't white out a single time. Misty is wasted as a second gym leader. With a better moveset, she could easily be the champion, which I imagine would be quite the pay raise. But that's enough of being a girl. Now we become the manliest man who ever manned, Surge. He has 3 Pokemon, so that's an improvement to Misty, right? Even if 2 of them are electric rats. While his electric Pokemon are certainly at a disadvantage against Brock, at least his Mons don't have any ground moves. My first Pikachu starts by growling Geodude 6 times to minimize his attack, at which point it's time to spam Quick Attack. The rock defense curls a bit, so it would be great to get a crit and bypass those stat changes. Hey, I meant I wanted the crit, not him. With Pika 1 gone, I send out Pika 2, who defeats the Geodude in only 9 more Quick Attacks, which is basically nothing, right? At which point, he starts to Tail Whip Onix. He only gets a few turns to do it though. Voltorb screeches, lowering the Rock Snake's defense even more before hitting with tackles. Even with that minus defense, these are doing virtually nothing. Because Onix got paralyzed, he keeps using Rock Tomb to try and slow me down, which was not great because it does more than Tackle would have. That paralysis actually worked against me that time, and Surge loses. This was not a surprise in the slightest, nor are the other 3 whiteouts that happen in quick succession. Come on Surge, you can do better than this. On attempt number 5, Pika 1 manages to defeat Geodude all on his own, putting me in a much better position. Voltorb screeches a bit before tackling Onix many times. It doesn't quite make it, but this time I still have Pika 2 in the back. 3 quick attacks later, my little electric team does the unthinkable. As a backup plan, if I continued to lose, I could have gotten Voltorb right at the edge of leveling up, so that when Geodude fell, it would have learned Sonic Boom, which would have easily taken out Onix. But that was a last-ditch attempt, which I'm glad I didn't need. Since the second gym leader is weak to electric, I'm hoping for a much simpler badge here. Pika 1 easily defeats Staryu, who hardens and tries to heal. He hits Starmie a single time before succumbing to a Water Pulse Swift. Pika 2 does basically the exact same thing. At this HP, little Voltorb comes out to spark once for a much simpler victory, as expected. At this point, arriving in Vermilion, Surge has a single Raichu, but I'll still refer to this guy as Pika 1. To earn my place as the 3rd gym leader, Surge navigates his way through this trash-filled room to defeat all these gym trainers who are Pika obsessed. I rely mostly on Voltorb because Sonic Boom is an incredibly useful move this early in the game. Without too much trouble, all 3 trainers are defeated, earning Surge his rightful place as the 3rd gym leader. But why stop there? In Celadon, Pika 2 also evolves just in time to battle Erika. Now up till now, the 2 Pikas have been almost indistinguishable, aside from the fact that one evolved early. But Pika 1 now has Return, so I can tell them apart. Return is slightly too weak for a 2-hit KO here, so Pika 1 Tail Whips too. I use the full heal I'm allowed to cure a Stun Spore, but he is immediately spored again. It takes some time, thanks to that paralysis, but with Return, Pika 1 does eventually defeat Victory Bell. Not that he does anything to Tangela. This Vine monster has great defense, but pretty bad special, falling in 2 resisted Thunderbolts by Pika 2. I then swap to Voltorb when Vileplume comes out. My little Pokeball sacrifices himself to win me the Rainbow Badge first try. 1 level past the Erika level cap, that Pokeball evolves, becoming a slightly larger, inverted Pokeball, who is still an exploding expert. Unlike the previous run with Misty, none of my current team can learn Psychic, but Pika 2's Thunderbolt is more than enough to prevent the other exploding expert from ruining my team. Muck is another matter, but with Toxic and Minimize. Though Pika 2 still ends up winning, it just takes a little bit longer. Coughing is again Thunderbolted, and this Pika's reign of terror ends with a Wheezing. No matter, the nearly identical Pika 1 picks up the slack, ending the battle with 1 more Bolt. That wasn't so bad. I'll be honest here though, I am concerned about Sabrina. Just to see what happens, large Pokeball starts with a Screech before beginning a rollout. That Screech makes Kadabra fall in 2 hits instead of 3. Mr. Mime likewise takes 2 hits and only Calm Minds. The 5th rollout connects to squash Venomoth, putting me in the perfect spot to self-destruct Alakazam. Well, that was even easier than Koga. Didn't see that coming. Nor, it seems, did Sabrina. For Blaine, Pikachu has a couple of new moves. First, Rain Dance has the double benefit of weakening Fire Blast, if it actually hits, but also ensures the second new move, Thunder, will hit. This is enough for both Growlithe and Ponyta, though Rapidash is a bit stronger. After a heal or two, the rain has stopped and Pikachu needs to do some more dancing. In the end, Rapidash only hit with a single stomp, so it's not an issue. Arcanine manages a takedown, but that's it. All I needed to beat Blaine was a little Raichu and some rain. What an easy gym battle, without any pain. Though, I shouldn't get cocky, as next up is Giovanni, the ground leader. While Brock also had ground Mons, he only had 2 compared to my 3 Mons. Now the roles are reversed. I have 3 compared to Giovanni's 5, which doesn't bode well. But I can't change that, let's just get started. Rhyhorn does not start with Earthquake, because it is Brick Break crit by Pika 1. Dugtrio is one-shot with Return, so not a bad start. Nidoqueen would not fall quite so easily, so I pivot to Electrode, who survives an Earthquake and self-destructs, because what else would it do? This brings out Pika 2 with Secret Power. I was really hoping it would paralyze Nidoking, but to no avail. It didn't even do enough damage for Pika 1's return to knock it out. So, surprising no one, I lose to Giovanni. I make a slight move change here and try again. Things play out similarly to before. There is no Brick Break crit, but Pika 1 still defeats Rhyhorn and Dugtrio 2, while Electrode blows up on Nidoqueen. But now, Pika 2 has learned Hyper Beam. I figured since he's going to die this turn anyway, he might as well give off a powerful parting shot. It's not enough to take out Nidoking, but it does prompt a heal, giving Pika 1 2 turns to smack him for the knockout, getting poisoned in the process. This brings us to Giovanni's last Mon, another Rhyhorn. But this one does Earthquake, ending another attempt. With this new strategy, I'm able to get to Giovanni's final Rhyhorn rather consistently. But no matter what I do, he continues to Earthquake. If I got a crit at the exact right moment, I could technically win, but I don't want it to be just pure luck. In a similar vein, if Pika 1 is close to death, I could try to bait out a takedown, but heal to stay alive, that could potentially paralyze Rhyhorn, and hypothetically, that paralysis could let me win. But again, that is not a consistent strategy at all, so I don't want to rely on it. I still try though, both strategies, as a matter of fact. Approximately 45 attempts later, all of my morals go out the window, and I use the lamest strategy known to man. I spam Double Team. It takes several more tries, but eventually Rhyhorn allows Pika 1 to double team 6 times, making him nigh impossible to hit. That Pika manages to beat all of Surge's Pokemon, except for Nidoking. He went out of order compared to normal, swapping out Nidoqueen for Rhyhorn at one point. Pika 1 eventually succumbs to poison and a poison sting, but I still have 2 Pokemon left. A simple explosion defeats Giovanni once and for all, as Surge, triumphantly, limps his way to the final badge. However, as the sole judge in this video, I make the executive decision to revoke the Earth Badge from Surge. The whole point of this video is to see if gym leaders can improve their standing compared to other leaders. And while Surge did technically win, by no means was that a consistent strategy. So I'm not even taking Surge to the Elite Four, because quite frankly, he doesn't deserve it. But there's no need to be upset. He went from the 3rd gym leader all the way up to the 7th. So that's still solid improvement and nothing to hate on. Heck, I'm just happy he got past Brock in a reasonable amount of time. Alright, now it's time to be a girl again. It's Erika's turn, who has 2 version-exclusive Pokemon and a Tangela. Obviously, with 3 Grass Mons, Brock will barely even register as a speed bump. Tangela takes 2 shots, gets 2 KOs, and that's the end of that. Leading up to Misty, both the unused Oddish and Bellsprout evolve, though I still doubt I'll need them. I have grand visions of beating the first 3 gyms with a single Pokemon. To that end, Tangela starts with Ingrain, preventing me from swapping him out, but healing a tad every turn. Staryu is a non-issue here, but Starmie, as we've already seen, is an incredible Mon. especially since Tangela is confused on turn 1. There's nothing I can do about it except stay in and hope for the best. The occasional absorb Tangela manages to connect with keeps him somewhat healthy, but it's not going to be enough. Both of us resort to using a super potion as this battle continues to drag on and on. Tangela does get a constant absorption of nutrients from the floor of this building. Doesn't make sense to me either, but that helps him win this battle of attrition eventually. He really had to work for it though. Surge won't be quite as easy, though we do resist electric. Then again, Voltorb could just Sonic Boom, dealing a decent chunk of damage. His Pika 2 Thunder Waves Tangela, which is to be expected as it tries to double team to no avail. Tangela is almost fully healed by the time Raichu comes out. I start with a full heal, am immediately paralyzed again, and do such a pathetic amount with Absorb. I know I said I had plans of only using Tangela for these gyms, but I'm not about to let Pika 1 spam double team without any pushback. He certainly tries though. Weeping Bell's Vine Whip is a bit better than Absorb, but between countless misses and another paralysis, it's clearly not going to work. And he dies, marking Erika's first death. And the second one comes like 5 seconds later. Alright Gloom, you're my last hope. Granted, at this HP, he barely has to do anything, though hitting would be nice. He does on the second turn, earning the Thunder Badge with a 2-hit Bullet Seed. Now the Celadon gym has a ton of trainers, all of whom are girls, which seems like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Can you deny someone a gym trainer position based solely on their sex? Apparently you can. Since most of these trainers' mons resist grass, I rely mainly on secret power to get me through. I actually could have evolved him already, same with Gloom, but I want them to learn a few new moves first. Once all of those trainers are defeated, I've earned my position as the 4th gym leader, right back where I started. Now we can make some progress, like evolving Weeping Bell once he learns Razor Leaf. I have another Leaf Stone for Gloom, but I wanted him to learn Petal Dance first. Looking back on it now while editing, it's the one move that Vileplume can actually learn leveling up, so not evolving here was unnecessary. By the way, I do realize all these mons are supposed to be girls, but I'm sticking it to the matriarchy with an all-boy team. That, or I just didn't realize. Take your pick. The now evolved Victory Bell starts off by returning Koga's coughing, who promptly explodes. That's uncool. I now need to heal since Victory Bell is the majority of my plan here. Muck takes a bit less than half from return, so I try to use Razor Leaf to deal a tiny bit of damage, which would prevent Koga from healing. Or at least that was the plan, because instead Bell just misses 3 times in a row, necessitating my last heal. After which, my plan immediately works, so that's something I suppose. I'm expecting another coughing explosion, and feel fine about sacrificing Gloom. Surprisingly, he survives the hit, but then is tackled by Wheezing. I send out Tangela next with the hope that Secret Power paralyzes. It does, but I am poisoned, so we both take a break to full heal. Wheezing is paralyzed again, thankfully, and Secret Power is a bit less powerful than I had hoped. Here is where I make a mistake though. I thought Wheezing wasn't a threat anymore, so I hard swap back to Victory Bell, who barely misses out on the kill and is sludged to death. That was a completely unnecessary loss, and it results in me losing the entire battle because Tangela is smokescreened and toxic. He almost makes it, but not quite. At least that was Erika's first whiteout. That's not too bad. On the second try, things go mostly the same, but I make the objectively smarter move of letting Tangela die. This gives Victory Bell a clean swap in, which is all he needed. That was a really stupid mistake. I just didn't want Tangela to needlessly die if I could help it. I guess my weakness is just caring too much about these monsters I am forcing to fight. At this point, I realize that Vileplume can learn Petal Dance, so Gloom gets to evolve. Even with that, if Sabrina were really psychic and smart, she could ensure I never win this fight. So here's hoping she isn't. We start off well, with Kadabra wasting a Calm Mind. Doesn't help if you're dead, man. Surprisingly, Mr. Mime is outsped and also falls. Now Alakazam. He's the one who could easily sweep my team, which he begins to do with a Psychic. But since Tangela is not weak to Psychic, it's not a guaranteed kill, though it is very close, and it tricks the Kazam into using Calm Mind. We both get paralyzed by Secret Power, we both heal, and then he tries to Future Sight for some reason. What a failure of an Alakazam. When I can use him, it's going to be a lot better. You know, in a future life. On Venomoth, I swapped to Vileplume to take a crit Psybeam, but more importantly, get Future Sighted, which would have done way too much to Tangela. Over the next several minutes, Tangela does small amounts of damage to Venomoth while trying to paralyze. He gets confused many times over, and both Sabrina and I use our 2 Hyper Potions here. Thanks to Ingrain healing every turn, Secret Power eventually defeats Venomoth, earning the Marsh Badge, which would have been significantly more difficult if Alakazam just used Psychic. Cue the perfect Erika counter, Blaine. Not only does he have Fire Mons, but his intimidating Growlithe makes things even more difficult. Tangela paralyzes it with Secret Power and falls. Vileplume then defeats it with Acid. He eventually does the same thing to Ponyta, but there is some very fine healing done on both sides first. He has Hyper Beam for Rapidash, but never gets the chance. This leaves everything up to Victory Bell, who does survive the first Fire Blast, returns, and is blasted again. Next try, thanks to a return crit, Victory Bell does defeat the Rapidash. Of course, this still leaves Blaine's ace, an intimidating Arcanine, so yeah, we don't quite make it. A few attempts later, I managed to get past Rapidash with both Victory Bell and Vileplume still kicking. So when the bell falls, I still have a Hyper Beaming Plume. He comes in clutch, surviving Fire Blast with a single HP, hits a Hyper Beam, and it doesn't do nearly enough. If this were a movie, you know he wouldn't have stopped at 1 HP for no reason. I totally would have won. But in real life, and by that I mean a real person playing a virtual life, things just don't work out that way. Instead, I lose. Again. After several more attempts, I come to realize that without a crazy amount of luck, Erika just can't do it. Even getting to Arcanine is lucky. Her 3 Grass Mons are simply no match for Blaine's Fire, and so she is stopped as the new 6th Gym Leader. At least that's some improvement, right? Next we become the Poison Ninja, Koga, whose team lacks variety, shall we say. Anyway, Brock's team all quad resist poison moves, but they can still be poisoned. How you poison a rock, I have no idea. But Coughing does, and though his tackles are quite pathetic, the poison damage more than makes up for it. Eventually, I mean. Onix refuses to be poisoned, however, and defeats Coughing. While these toxic balloons may not be great, the sheer number of them should help me win. Not sure why Koga needs 3 Coughings instead of, say, a Golbat or something, but I don't make the rules. It only takes 2 of these poison bags to defeat Brock, which wasn't too bad. For Misty, I show off the one other unique Mon Koga has, Grimer. His Sludge is surprisingly strong, even after Staryu hardens. Misty wastes a heal on her first Mon, which is fine by me. We all know how good a Starmie can be after all. It doesn't even let Grimer attack. The first Coughing hits a Sludge and is promptly knocked out. Now I didn't want to resort to this so early, I was hoping to delay this strat a bit more, but now it's time to unveil Koga's secret weapon. These things explode. Whenever I get into a tough spot, I have 3 mini bombs in my pocket. This means I'm expecting a relatively simple run, all things considered. Hopefully Surge obliges me. Once again, I force a gym leader to waste a healing item on their first useless Pokemon, which suits me just fine. Stab Sludge, which is a 65 base power move with a 30% chance to poison, is actually a solid option this early in the run. Pika 2 found that out the hard way. Not even Pika 1 can stand up to it. And that's how you beat Surge with a single Coughing. Things are looking pretty good for Koga right about now. The one bad thing about his team, aside from the plethora of Coughings, is that they all evolve a bit later than I'd like. By the time I get to Erika, they're all still so basic. No matter, I'm warning you, if you try to paralyze Coughing, he's just gonna blow up in your face, Victory Bell, and be immediately replaced with an almost identical one. Tangela isn't even worthy of a self-destruct, just a few sludges for her. Vileplume then puts Coughing to sleep, which is the last mistake she'll ever make. Again, don't try to use status effects on my boys. They won't stand for it. Or should I say levitate for it? Before beating my way through the Fuchsia City Gym, one Coughing is able to evolve into Wheezing, but not the others. So I guess this one is my favorite. The gym trainers here are a bit unique, in that they have a variety of Pokemon types. There are some Psychic types, like Hypno right here, who doesn't give me too much trouble, as well as this Drowsy, and the other one, Kadabra, another Drowsy. Okay, I swear there's some variety here. They can't all be Psychic types, can they? Thank you, Edgar. You actually have a poison type, like you should. And a ground, because why the heck not? And another ground type here too. Yeah, this is a weird gym for sure. To make a long story, well, not short, I've rambled a bit too much here, but less long, none of these trainers are a match for some self-destructs, and Koga easily earns his place as the 5th gym leader. Grimer technically could have evolved already, but it's better late than never. Same with the other Koffings. Once again, Sabrina could be a major pain if she were halfway smart. Kadabra chooses to Calm Mind, getting sludged by Wheezing. Mr. Mime uses Barrier, which is halfway decent, as it lets him survive a bit longer and hit a solid Psybeam, but it's still not enough to defeat Favorite. Alakazam has the perfect chance to Psychic Sweep my team. Instead, he Future Sights. Not just once, but twice, letting Favorite end both of their lives. Instead of simply blowing up Venomoth 2, I take the opportunity to show off Muk's Dig. He has had that move since the Surge battle, and has never had a chance to use it. A few digs, followed up with Sabrina healing and Muk sludging, earns Koga a very slight promotion, but one that, in actuality, he shouldn't have been able to get. A Psychicking Alakazam is way too strong for this poison team, but hey, I'm not gonna look a gift horse, or gym leader, in the mouth. That just sounds gross. I take the badge and leave. The problem with my main man Blaine is his intimidating dogs. Wheezing are all about physical attack. Of course, they can also learn Rain Dance, making this Fire Blast quite pathetic. The same is true of Ponyta. 2 sludges and it's a goner. Rainy, as he shall now be called, survives just long enough to Rain Dance one more time before succumbing to Rapidash's blast. The rain was apparently a waste, however, as Rapidash stalls, bouncing on my Muk. A single Sludge Bomb barely misses out on the KO, and Blaine wastes the remaining rain turns with Hyper Potions. Muk still did a pretty good job surviving, all things considered. Arcanine's Intimidate makes Sludge Bomb a 3-hit KO, even with that one turn of poison. Muk gets pretty low on health, so for the first time as Koga, I need to use a healing item. This allows Muk to stay alive and defeat the 7th gym leader. I don't want to jinx anything here, but Koga might be the first leader to make it to the top since Misty, assuming he can get past Giovanni with his poison-resistant Mons. Muk has a trick up his slimy sleeve though, Giga Drain. It easily defeats the even slower Rhyhorn. Dugtrio clearly outspeeds, but his attack is just not good enough, and with Giga Drain, this shouldn't be an issue. Giovanni heals, not a big deals, till Dugtrio gets a crit Earthquake. Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. In Muk's place, I send out Returny, the Wheezing who knows Return. The good thing about these levitating guys is that Earthquake can't hit them, so I still have a major advantage, even sans Muk. They're also defensive tanks with a stat of 120. Nidoqueen's pathetic attempts to hurt Returny are all for naught. A few returns easily bodies the Queen. The King tries to double kick and Poison Sting, both of which are not very effective. He survives a bit longer than his Queen, but that's only thanks to a heal. It doesn't really do anything to help Giovanni. Last is another Rhyhorn. I had hoped to use Muk again here, but a certain 3-headed mole had other plans. No matter, I have plenty of Wheezings left, so the defensive Rhyhorn is easily taken out with 2 self-destructs. I didn't expect this to be quite so easy, but Koga has shown himself worthy of being the final gym leader in Kanto, surpassing all of the others. Just like Misty before him though, there is one last challenge to overcome, the Elite Four. For Lorelei, I start not with Rainy or Returny, instead we'll call this one Wheezy. Wheezy can learn Thunderbolt. Even though his special attack isn't amazing, Thunderbolt is more powerful than Sludge would be. Dugong barely survives the bolts and heals. It's brought down pretty low again, and hoping for another heal, Wheezy tries to blow up, but to no avail. Returny also knows Thunderbolt, so either way, we're fine. Slowbro hits a Surf, getting me down to 4 HP, falling into Thunderbolts. Rather than allow Returning to die by dive, I swap into Muk, who tanks the hit. 2 Giga Drains easily defeats the defensive Cloyster. This gross piece of sludge then falls in love with Jinx, somehow. To break that attract, I allow Returny to come out and fall to Blizzard. Rainy promptly avoids 2 lovely kisses, defeating the Psychic Mon, who has no psychic moves. He then explodes on Lapras at the end here because, why not? I only had 1 Pokemon left after all. For Bruno, I start with Muk. Once again, his Giga Drain comes in handy, though both Onyxes outspeed to Earthquake. Good thing their attack stat is lower than a Pidge's. Hitmonchan mainly only knows fighting moves, which Muck easily resists. By the way, just like before, I'm allowed a single Citrus Berry per Elite Four battle, since all of their aces have one. Mega Kick is, well, quite frankly, a mega powered kick, resulting in me needing to heal Muck. Bruno also heals his Lee, twice actually, who is then quickly poisoned. On Lee's last turn, since he'll clearly fall from poison, Muck takes the chance to minimize for the very first time. I know Koga loves to spam this move, but I'd rather not rely on luck if I can help it. Machamp begins with a Bulk Up, making Sludge Bomb a bit weaker since it is a physical move here, but he misses Cross Chop just enough for Muck to make it out alive, defeating Bruno. Agatha also has poison types, but even with 3 ghosts, she still has a larger variety of Mons than Koga. Brittany has now learned the physical attacking Shadow Ball that even with some confusion delays, the first Gengar is easily knocked out. Haunter tries and fails to Hypnosis, also getting Shadow Balled. Her second Gengar tries my Shadow Ball strat, but it works much better on a Ghost. There is some Hypnosis thrown around, specifically at Brittany. I heal the first one, but decide to let nature take its course the second time, and Brittany does not let me down. He doesn't know any electric moves right now, while Rainy still knows Thunder. That thankfully does not miss Golbat. I choose to not waste any time on Arbok right now, and just self-destruct. If Agatha knew how to properly use Gengars, those ghosts are incredible, I certainly could not have won. But I'll take that victory. Next, we have Dragon Tamer Lance. Weezings cannot learn Ice Beam, unfortunately, so there goes the easy strat I used with Starmie. Wheezy begins the battle by Thunderbolting Gyarados right to the grave. Aerodactyl is also Thunderbolted, taking 2 hits because it's not quad weak to electric. Dragonite then defeats Wheezy before he can self-destruct. No matter, Rainy can take that outrage and explode, one-shotting Dragonite. Since I'm now down to 2 Pokemon, I need to be a bit more sparing with my explosions. A single Sludge, Poison, Return combo defeats Dragonair number 1, while 2 returns, broken up by a full Restore to cure Paralysis, defeats the second. And even without Ice Beam, that wasn't so bad. This brings us to the final championship battle for only the second time this video. Returny Thunderbolts Pidgeot, but is Feather Danced in the process, lowering his attack. I didn't want to have to blow up the Alakazam, but now Return is too weak to one-shot, and the Feather Dance left me no choice. Good thing Gary sucks with Alakazam too. Muck makes short work of Exeggutor with Sludge Bombs, baiting out a Rhydon as the future sight hits. He'll heal it up anyway with Giga Drain, mostly, and then lose all of that health thanks to Earthquake. A single Giga Drain isn't enough to defeat Rhydon, but Gary keeps on healing, giving Muck several more chances to get fully healed. Arcanine's Intimidate, coupled with a Flamethrower Burn, almost saves that dog's life, but Muck gets an incredible crit right at the very end, sacrificing himself as Blastoise comes out. I decide to send out Rainy, who, as you know, has Thunder. I'm hoping for Blastoise to Rain Dance, but he did not oblige me. At least not right away. Next turn he does, for whatever reason, guaranteeing his own death, as Koga becomes the new Kanto champion. I know I made fun of Koga's team choices a lot. 3 Coughings is a bit ridiculous, but when each of them can learn how to blow up, that's kind of like 3 guaranteed knockouts. And as slow as Muck is, he's still not too shabby an attacker. All in all, Koga saw a decent jump in his positioning, going from the 5th gym leader all the way up to the champion, without a single whiteout, I might add, so that's not too bad. I have a, let's call it a premonition, that the next section will be similarly easy. After all, Sabrina has 3 great psychic Pokemon and a bug. Granted, for Brock, my 2 Abras can't do anything, so we're already down to half a team. I decide to start with Venonat to give her a chance because I know Mr. Mime could solo this gym. She starts with Supersonic, making this rock hit himself several times. All the while, this little bug throws herself at it for minor damage. Surprisingly, the process of slowly whittling away at Geodude's health works, and Venonat defeats it. Good for you. And sorry you just got Rock Tombed. Now it's all up to Mr. Mime, though I'm not worried in the slightest. I already foresaw this victory because Mr. Mime is way overpowered in the early game. What I tell you, that was easy. Before the next gym, both of my Abras evolve, though if things go well, I should only need one. We're off to a good start here, as Staryu is immediately Psybeamed to death. Starmie does resist Psychic, but that's okay, since Kadabra also knows Thief. So let's call him Grabra the Thief. Two Thieves leaves the star barely hanging on as Misty heals with a super potion, and then spams Recover. This is going to take a long time. Eventually it changes to using Bubble Beam, but at that point it's just too late, and Grabra wins. For Surge, I start with Mr. Mime, who is soundproof. The logic here was to prevent Sonic Boom from being used because it's pretty good against Mons with low HP, like mine. I thought it was a pretty clever strategy that clearly let Mimey beat Voltorb. But looking back on it now, apparently Sonic Boom does not count as a sound-based attack. It's not the sound that deals the damage, perhaps it's the shockwave that is generated as a result. And falling deeper in this rabbit hole, don't worry, we'll come back to Surge soon enough, I've also learned that soundproof Pokemon do not wake up when you play the Poké-Flute. As much as that sucks, because the Poké-Flute is a useful item, you've really got to give the developers props for that consistency. It's pretty awesome. Back to Surge, Pikachu is easily defeated with a Confusion, though Raichu proves to be a bit more difficult. After a Paralysis, I swap into the non-Grabra to give him a bit of screen time. A few Psybeams, and another Paralysis later, Surge is defeated easily enough. This brings us to Erika. Her Victory Bell is just strong enough to survive Mimey's Psybeam, wasting a heal trying to stay alive. It does not work. We haven't seen Venonat in action for a few gyms, so I give him a chance here. Leech Life is a bit weaker than I would have liked, even being super effective. I still tried a couple of times, but I'm not really satisfied. Instead, Venonat swaps to Confusion, which is strong enough to eventually defeat Tangela. Venonat also stun spores Vileplume. Mimey then reappears Psybeaming twice for the knockout, getting the 4th badge. In preparation for Koga, Venonat evolves, losing her wonderful eyes. This is one of the reasons I've always preferred Butterfree to this moth. Who needs Shield Dust? Because she just evolved, and got the Psychic TM, I decide to let Venomoth Psychic her way through Koga's team. Even the lowliest of Sabrina's Mons can solo Koga's gym, which is how the battle could have gone last round when I was Koga if Sabrina were smart. Good thing she wasn't. When I get to Saffron, there are 2 gyms. Kind of. In my mind, before Sabrina can become the official Saffron City gym leader, she first needs to defeat Black Belt Koichi, which is not a difficult prospect thanks to her Psychic Mons. With the wannabe gym leader defeated, Sabrina now has to beat all the trainers in her own gym, after Grabra evolves. I changed the code so trade evolutions happen via level up. The other Kadabra can't evolve just yet, not till all the gym trainers are down. With Thief, this is a simple matter. The hardest part is remembering which trainers I've already faced and trying to find the ones I haven't. In a matter of minutes, I'm confident I've beaten them all, and it's time to move on. The next gym leader is obviously Blaine. These intimidating Mons don't scare my special attackers, not in the slightest. Arcanine survives the newer Kazam Psychic and deals a ton of damage with a Fire Blast, but it's not enough to stop this guy. Ponyta clearly can't either, and a lucky miss by Rapidash ensures that Kazam beats Blaine all on his own. Blaine just hasn't realized it yet, cause he keeps trying to heal. Give it up, man. For the final gym leader, I lead with Venomoth, who knows Giga Drain. Both Rhyhorns are immediately knocked out, no problem. Even Dugtrio is drained without issue. Nidoqueen's Earthquake does less than half thanks to the Moth's bug type. He heals a bit before his queen falls. Last is the king, who falls just like the queen in 2 psychics. The 8th gym leader couldn't even beat a single Venomoth? Talk about pathetic. Glad I'm not that guy. Yet. Things have been a bit too easy lately, so let's try to have some fun here in the Elite Four. I start with Mr. Mime to roleplay copying Dugong's Thick Fat. Ice moves are now not very effective against her, but Lorelei's Mons also have a ton of water moves. Several Psychics, and 1 Citrus Berry later, Dugong is defeated. Just for fun, let's try some Metronomes on Lapras here, and I get a Fire Blast, which burns. Sweet. It didn't do a ton of damage, but the burn is nice. I have to heal a Paralysis with full restore, knocking out Lapras with burn damage, and a Facade. I heal a final time against Cloyster, who keeps on spamming Protect. Slowbro immediately starts by spamming Amnesia, dramatically increasing his special defense. Which sucks, because all of my Mons are special attackers. Mimey deals some damage, but it's not nearly enough. Grabra hits a single time with Thief, and needs to swap away thanks to a yawn. Alakazam has Shockwave, which is not as good as Thunderbolt, but still an electric move. Not that he lasts very long either. We're back to Grabra just in time for a heal. I then try to let Venomoth get a status effect or something, but she is status affected instead. How rude. Last, we're back to Grabra again, and I'm just hoping for a crit Thief to bypass his special defense boost, which clearly doesn't happen. So I lose against Lorelei. Here I thought Sabrina would blow past all of these trainers. Okay, let's try that again, but a bit more serious this time. Now Alakazam leads the charge to Psychic Dugong twice for the knockout. I still have a bit of fun, countering Lapras's Body Slam just because I can. I do push my luck trying a second time though. I heal, as does Lorelei, but I get a crit and her ace is gone. I take the time to recover on this pathetic Cloyster, and she lets me do it, before bringing out my arch nemesis, Slowbro. This time though, I have Alakazam out to Shockwave twice, sacrificing his consciousness in the process. He fails to wake up for several turns, even falling in love while asleep. That's pretty messed up. Ever heard of a little thing called consent there, Jinx? To free him from that nightmarish prison, I swap into Venomoth to Stun Spore. She only lasts 2 turns, and now I use my final heal to wake up Alakazam. He gets a few relatively weak shockwaves in, nothing to write home about, until I call it, swapping in Grabra to use his one unique move, Thief. That went better than last time, but was still more difficult than I expected. As always, Bruno should be a walk in the park, where you're accosted by one of those super fit old guys who loves to talk. Anyway, Venomoth did very little last battle, so she leads the charge here. Hitmonchan hits with a Rock Tomb, trying to lower her speed, but I guess Shield Dust is good for something. Expecting the same from Machamp, I swap to Mimey to take a Rock Tomb and a Scary Face. She still wins in 2 Psychics. Now Hitmonlee outspeeds, and a single Mega Kick ends Mimey for this battle. Venomoth tries to Psychic the Lee too, and is also kicked in the face. I guess it's time for Grabra to knock it out. And Onix too. He was a bit tough for a fighting guy. Agatha goes basically the way you would expect. Grabra outspeeds to Psychic all of her Poison Mons who never stood a chance. I could have been a bit nicer and tried to do this with Venomoth, but I figured it was time to show how great an Alakazam can be. Now, I've been dreading the Lance battle, mainly because of my lack of Ice Beams. It's the best way to counter Dragonites. First is a non-dragon Gyarados that Alakazam simply shockwaves to death. Aerodactyl starts with a Scary Face to slow me down, and hits an Ancient Power for a good chunk of damage before being knocked out. Zap then falls to the dragon, of course, as does Mimey after only a single Psychic. I feel like that Hyper Beam was a bit overkill there, man. But it worked out for me, as Grabra gets 2 free Psychics, knocking out Lance's ace. Dragonair 1 survives Psychics, using up all of Lance's full restores. The second one Thunder Waves both of us, taking a risk I guess, that did not end up working. Lance was surprisingly easy, all things considered, especially after the rough Elite Four start with Lorelei. Being Psychic, I can tell we're not done yet though, and it's not just because I've beaten this game literally hundreds of times. To truly become the champion, I need to beat our absent through most of this video, rival. Alakazam starts by Psychicking Pidgeot and getting Sand Attack. No matter, he knows the impossible to miss Shockwave. He also uses this on Gyarados, who survives the hit and thrashes. Thankfully, Alakazam also survives the hit, so it's okay. Now, I would rather use Psychic on this Fire Zard, but it could miss thanks to the Sand Attack. Shockwave is still a decent backup option, as it does some damage. Mimey comes out next, and her Psychic is barely too weak, as is Charizard's Fire Blast, leaving her alive with a whopping 3 HP. Gary heals, but I choose not to, not yet anyway, because I need that Zard defeated. I then swap into Grabra against his own Alakazam. Now mine has an advantage because of Thief, but it still does slightly less than recovers. The result is many, many turns of me hoping for a crit to break this cycle of madness, but of course, it doesn't happen. I don't want to waste too many Psychics here either, but a single defense drop would be greatly appreciated. that doesn't happen either. His Alakazam does get the defense drop though, so fun times. I wanted to avoid relying on stat boosting moves, but a Calm Mind here would have been greatly appreciated. When I'm down to my last thief, it's becoming apparent to me that Grabra has met his match. So, for I think the first time this video, I heal a non-active Pokemon. I have a feeling I'm gonna need Mimey here. Let's see what her Metronome can do. Silver Wind? Not bad. And a crit. And an Omni Boost. That was an incredible move. 10 out of 10, no complaints here. The next few Metronomes are a bit less useful, with Growl, Defense Curl, and Luster Purge. But not even that could lower his special defense. Mimey must have heard me earlier though, because the next Metronome is a Calm Mind. Not too bad. She needs to be healed, but now with +2 special attack, Psychics is a tad stronger than Recover, and this Fakazam is finally defeated. That went on way too long. With this plus attack, she doesn't even need to bother with Magical Leafing Rhydon. Executor does resist all of Mimey's attacking moves, and puts her to sleep, but it's not a big deal. I still have some healing items, I'm allowed 4 in this battle, and Mimey is just too jacked up to care about little things like not very effective Psychics. She tears through this final Pokemon, beating the champion. Granted, it was a very long battle. It feels good becoming a champion right away after the last gym leader. Not that I really had any doubts with Sabrina. Alakazam is just far too strong, let alone having 2 of them. Even Mr. Mime has decent stats, and Venomoth was around as well, even though she's not psychic. The 7th gym leader is obviously Blaine. He starts with 2 Growliths and 2 Ponytas. This puts him at a distinct disadvantage right from the start. Fire Pokemon have a rough beginning in Kanto. Even so, thanks to his crappy special defense, Ponyta manages to ember his way through Brock's Geodude. Though Rock Tomb is super effective, Onix still sucks, meaning it takes 3 hits to knock out the Fire Horse, letting him do a decent chunk of damage first. At which point I bring out my secret weapon, Growlithe with Bite. Being special in this gen, it makes short work of Onix, winning a relatively easy badge. If only things were so simple for Misty. We start off well with Growlithe Bite flinching Staryu. Unfortunately, next is the incredible Star itself, who water pulses through 2 Growliths, not being bit even a single time. Ponyta survives a pulse to Stomp, and manages to quick attack before dying too. I had really hoped that repeating the same combo with Ponyta 2 would be enough to knock out Starmie, but our first try ends in failure. Not particularly a surprise though. I try this method out a few more times, hoping for better luck, but to no avail. It doesn't appear this strategy will let me win, so I need a better plan. Now my first Ponyta has Secret Power, which is both stronger than Stomp, and has the possibility to paralyze. But I'm just gonna spoil it right now, at no point in any of these attempts is that star paralyzed. I don't know what's up with it, but Misty must be cheating. One part of this plan I haven't mentioned yet is that ideally, Staryu takes enough damage to bait out a Super Potion. It's the only one Misty has after all. Even if I do need to sacrifice a Growlithe, that is a worthy trade. On this particular attempt, Pony Power doesn't quite work out, surprise surprise, but the second gets a crit at just the right time, beating Misty once and for all. That is, until I decide I'm not sure how I feel about requiring a crit to win here, so I restart and try again. Back then, I was still naive, expecting the 30% chance of Secret Power paralyzing to actually activate. Some 9 attempts later, I'm realizing that restarting was a mistake. But I get lucky in another way, as Growlithe survives Water Pulse thanks to a low roll. This isn't the first time it's happened, but the timing here was incredible, as it allows Growlithe to finally bite Starmie for the win. I'm still not a huge fan of requiring a low roll Water Pulse to win. Again, it's not super consistent, but those 2 lucky wins combined almost make a real one, so let's just call it good enough. Surge is a welcome break, as I no longer have a type disadvantage. Voltorb falls in a single crit ember by Growlithe, while Pikachu takes 2. That double team ended up being pointless. Pika 1 also double teams, that's Surge's whole stick after all, while Ember is quite weak. A few shockwaves defeats my first Fire Dog. This brings out Pony Power, who immediately hits a Secret Power to paralyze. Where was that when I actually needed it? Thanks to Thunder Wave, we both take some time to heal, him with a Super Potion first, while I just full heal. Pony Power is immediately paralyzed again as he fails to defeat Pika 1. All we need is one final quick attack for the win. Okay, Static, the battle's over, give it up already. Erika would be a heck of a lot easier if my Firemons had something better than Ember, but I'm avoiding the Celadon Game Corner prizes, at least for now. I don't want to make things too easy now, do I? Though it's a close one, the Growlithe who has Dig, aka Diglett, makes Erika waste a Hyper Potion on her Victory Bell. Even with that healing, he manages to defeat it with 2 Embers. Tangela doesn't let him get any farther. 2 Embers from Ponyta puts the Vine Monster into the ground where he belongs. Vileplume has decent special defense, not taking too much from Ember. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. Ponyta tried so hard and got so far, defeating Erika. As expected, it wasn't too difficult. At this point, I am allowed to evolve one of my Growliths and one Ponyta. Blaine has an Arcanine and a Rapidash after all. Not sure why he didn't evolve the other ones though. Rapidash begins the Koga battle with a sunny day. We still don't have any flamethrowers, so we need all the help we can get. The first Coughing is easily defeated, even making Koga waste a Hyper Potion. I pivot to the now evolved Diglett on Muck to lower his attack. I had planned on using his namesake move, but Acid Armor makes that a poor choice. Flame Wheel is a decent option, even burning Muck early on. When Diglett gets down in health, I realize I don't have any Hyper Potions on hand, but I will allow a full restore, since at this HP, they heal the same amount anyway, and I'm not curing a status affliction. I do have a full heal though, which is good because Toxic Diglett really needs it. Muck eventually falls, bringing out another Coughing. I'd rather not waste my evolved dog here to a Rogue Explosion. Pony Power is a fair trade though. Or, Koga could just defeat my horse without a sacrifice. Rapidash finishes it off with a quick attack, unveiling Koga's ace, Wheezing, who thankfully cannot explode. Rapidash's whole reason of being in this battle is to Sunny Day, before running back to Diglett. He is toxic again, but it's fine. 2 more Flame Wheels defeats the 5th Gym Leader. For Sabrina, I start with Pony Power to see what she can do and hope for a paralysis or 2. It doesn't matter for Kadabra, who is knocked right out. Mr. Mime survives a turn to Barrier, which did basically nothing for him. Sabrina's non-psychic bug is next, though its Psybeam is relatively weak. She chooses to waste both of her Hyper Potions on this bug, leaving nothing for Alakazam. Pony Power gets 1 turn to try and paralyze it, which didn't work, so he falls to Psychic. He still did really good though. Diglett takes a Psychic and makes the Future Sight a failed prediction, finishing the battle with a single return. So once again, we're back to Sabrina acting a fool. In the Cinnabar Gym, I avoid all of these pesky quiz questions. What is this, junior high? Opting to just battle everyone straight up. With an evolved Diglett, these battles are relatively simple. Also, why is there a thief in this gym? With the final trainer, Super Nerd Zach, defeated, I am once again the 7th gym leader. With that increased level cap, my second Growlithe learns Flamethrower at level 49, and after evolving, also learns Extreme Speed at level 49. It's not often you get 2 new moves at the same level. Pony Power, however, still does not evolve. There's a slightly good reason for that, which you'll see soon enough. The evolved Rapidash gets to learn Fire Blast because why not? With his rock and ground types, I'm expecting Giovanni to be a tough battle. Not Rhyhorn though. Arcanine still has Bite, giving us a repeat of the Brock battle. Dugtrio is outsped and flamethrowered. Nidoqueen hits an Earthquake, but gets burned first, making it a pretty pathetic move. Giovanni wastes his second healing item here, by the way. Nidoking is not burned, hitting with a full-powered Earthquake. That Arcanine still somehow survives, which is really impressive. 1 more Bite flinch later, that dog soloed the final gym. That was quite unexpected. I even gave Rapidash Solar Beam for this very fight. After this battle, Pony Power gets to level 53 and learns Fire Blast, 10 levels before Rapidash would have. I don't generally love moves that can miss like this, but since the other Rapidash has one, I'm not one to play favorites. I think this video has proven that. Now that Blaine has proven himself stronger than all of the other gym leaders, for the most part, the only thing left to do is battle the Elite Four, starting with arguably the hardest one, Lorelei and her mainly water types. Rapidash starts with a Sunny Day to not only weaken Dugong's Surf, but to get a 1-turn Solar Beam. Dugong makes it hail, Sunny Day is used once again, Rapidash eats a Citrus Berry, defeating Dugong. Cloyster then stands no chance. Lapras is another matter entirely. I heal, which did basically nothing thanks to a crit surf. I don't want to use my last full restore just yet, so the solar beaming horse is surfed again. Pony Power has upgraded to Double Edge, which is still too weak to defeat Lapras. He can get confused though, hitting himself in the face and getting surfed too. That's okay, we can still win this. Digleth's return is also too weak, as Lorelei confuses him and heals right back up. The other Arcanine burns with Flamethrower for some nice chip, but it likely won't be enough. Following some switching to cure confusion, I use my final healing item, and for the second time, it's rendered useless, because Lorelei immediately gets a crit. This seems mighty unfair. Time for my last Mon. He Bite flinches Lapras, combined with burn damage, finally knocks it out. Slowbro knows Surf, of course, but for a brief glorious turn, it looks like I might be able to win with Bite flinches. Or even a Bite crit, but clearly the Pokemon gods don't like me enough for that, and Blaine loses to the very first Elite Four member, which is disappointing, but not really a surprise. Let's try again with a minor change. Both Dugong and Cloyster fall to Solar Beams like before, but this time, rather than heal Rapidash when Lapras comes out, I allow it to die. That way the sun is still up for Arcanine, who now knows Overheat. Between that and Solar Beam damage, Lapras is a goner. Slowbro is still a concern, and because of the special attack drop, Extreme Speed is a better option than Bite, super effectiveness notwithstanding. Of course, it doesn't work, and I lose another Mon. Diglett does Bite a few times and uses Return for some extra damage, but quickly succumbs to Surf. Okay, down to our last Mon again. Pony Power. Double Edge knocks out Slowbro, while Fire Blast fails to one-shot Jinx, who puts him to sleep. We both full restore at the same time. Pony Power becomes attracted to this humanoid thing, but finishes it off with a quick attack, beating Lorelei on only the second try. This could have been a lot worse. Glad we didn't have a repeat of the Misty battle. I'd better not lose to Bruno here though. Diglett starts against Onix, but using Dig would be a poor decision, what with his Earthquake. Instead, this is a flashback to Blaine's first gym battle, with this dog biting Onix. He also heals with a berry. Hitmonchan is burned right away, cutting his attack and saving Diglett's life. He's not so lucky with Machamp though. Pony Power Fire Blasts, 2 times actually, avoiding Rock Tomb. He doesn't have any good moves to defeat Onix though, especially after using his last Fire Blast, and he promptly falls to Earthquake. Time for the other dog to bite away at the Rock Snake till it falls. Hitmonlee is then Overheat Extreme Speeded, or Sped, who knows, defeating Bruno first try. Since he did a decent job last time, I again lead with Diglett to Flamethrower bite Agatha's first Gengar. Golbat is also Flamethrowered, hitting with a single Air Cutter first. Not even Arbok can stand up to Diglett, not that he uses Dig thanks to Intimidate. The second Gengar Sludge Bomb barely misses out on the KO, allowing me to use my first heal here. At which point Flamethrower defeats this ghost too. Haunter puts him to sleep, and I use my second full restore the same time as Agatha. I swap to Bite, hoping to flinch the ghost, and it works perfectly. Agatha is defeated without any more trouble. But let's not get too excited just yet. Lance may very well be the hardest Elite Four member. After all, every single one of his Pokemon resist fire. Gyarados would be concerning if he had any water moves at all, but he doesn't. Arcanine intimidates it, as does Diglett after a swap. Diglett returns a few times, tanks Hyper Beam like nothing, and we both end up healing. A few turns later, Diglett ends up on top. Unfortunately, this brings out an Ancient Power Aerodactyl. Here's hoping for a burn. Well, that didn't work. Instead, Aero got an Omni Boost, so that's not great. And he gets a second consecutive Omni Boost. That's even less great. At this point, it appears to be all over. Ancient Power is far too powerful now. Aero does run out of PP on my last Mon, but at that point, it's too little too late, and I lose. I didn't have a great strategy for Aerodactyl, aside from Bite, so I guess I deserved that. On the next attempt, he doesn't get 2 Omni Boosts, meaning I do defeat it. Dragonite is still alive though. Pony Power does something with Double Edge, and tries to burn, which of course didn't work. He falls to Hyper Beam, and my final Arcanine does very little with Extreme Speed. He gets the dragon down to a sliver, but just can't do it. Okay, after those 2 losses, I make a bit of a change here. When Aero comes out, I pivot twice in quick succession to each of my dogs, who intimidate it. Diglett has lost the ability to dig, but learned Iron Tail instead. Arrow still gets an Omni Boost, but thanks to the 2 Intimidates, Diglett survives, gets healed, and knocks it out with 2 tails. And I still have my entire team left. At least for one more turn, till Dragonite outrages. Rapidash uses Sunny Day, but is promptly crit to the grave. That kind of sucks. I was hoping to deal at least a bit of damage before falling. Even with the sun, Overheat is not nearly enough to defeat the dragon. Some extreme speeds later, Dragonite gets healed, and Arcanine is doing a decent job. He almost takes it out again, but not quite. Okay, now it's all up to Pony Power. A single Double Edge knocks out Lance's ace. Each of the Dragonairs will take 2 Double Edges, but their outrages are not super strong, and I still have a heal. 4 Double Edges and 1 full restore later, Pony Power is the sole survivor of this Lance encounter. That was a tough one. Alright Blaine, you're so close here. Can you finish it to become the champion? Rapidash begins with a Stomp to deal some chip damage to Pidgeot. I do have to swap though because of a Sand attack, and I need Rapidash to be able to hit. When I swap back in, Rapidash Sunny Days, and Fire Blast was a crit anyway, so I guess that Stomp was unnecessary. This baits out Rhydon, which is why the Solar Beaming Rapidash was up first, and why I didn't want to miss. Blastoise is next. He also gets Solar Beam and decides to make it rain. Here's hoping another sunny day will let Rapidash survive a Hydro Pump. And he does, just barely. This lets him knock out the turtle next turn. Even with the sun though, Alakazam survives Fire Blast and ends Rapidash's streak. You deserve a rest, buddy, you did great. Pony Power takes his place, one-shotting with Double Edge even after a heal. For the last sunny day turn, Pony Power misses Fire Blast, allowing Executor to Light Screen. Well, that's not cool. The next 2 Fire Blasts do hit, though I take a slight break in between to heal up Pony Power. Last is Arcanine, but since Diglett comes out second, his dog is intimidated while mine isn't. Coupled with Return, Diglett easily defeats Gary's lamer version as Blaine becomes the champion. While he didn't get nearly as much of an upgrade as, say, Misty did, he only went up by 1 badge and the Elite Four, it's still impressive what Blaine could accomplish eventually. In particular when the odds undeniably were stacked against him from the start. I don't care what my brother says. Starting with a fire type in Kanto is 100% hard mode. He was convinced that Bulbasaur was the tougher starter. What a fool. But that's enough family drama. Let's be the gym leader with no drama whatsoever. Giovanni, the ground leader who has plenty of Mons to choose from. As a matter of fact, he holds the Kanto gym leader record for the most Pokemon. That means things should be easy, right? Brock certainly will be. All I need is a little Diglett with magnitude and a bit of luck. Luck is not on my side for Onix, getting a few relatively weak hits. Magnitude 6 may sound strong, but it only has 50 base power. Still, little Diglett single-handedly defeats Brock, which is certainly impressive considering his lack of hands. On the way to Misty, we have a few evolutions. Nidoran Girl, Nidoran Boy, and then Nidorino 2. Since I'm only focusing on Giovanni as a gym leader, I ignore all of his non-gym leader battles, meaning I can evolve whenever I want, as long as my team matches his by the final gym. Even though Nidoking has a weakness to water, I think his ability to now learn Mecha Kick more than makes up for it. We'll see though. He starts off well, kicking the little star right away. He does connect with Starmie too, but gets confused. I swap to Rhyhorn as a sacrifice, then immediately sacrifice the other one to Super Potion King. That way he comes on out to get confused and hit himself in the face. That's not how I envisioned it going. Well, Diglett is another sacrifice, so I can safely bring out Nidorina. She has secret power, immediately paralyzing the star. So it is possible. Blaine wanted to know. Misty heals, as Nidorina keeps hitting with secret power. It's not super strong, but it's at least something. She fails, and now King outspeeds. Doesn't miss the kick, and earns the second badge. First try too, though it did take my entire team. With Misty down, Nidorina can now evolve with the second Moonstone you get in Mount Moon. I don't have to be concerned with water weaknesses now, at least not for a while. This brings us to Surge, who Giovanni counters perfectly as we've already seen at length. I may not have a Dugtrio, even though you can catch one right outside the city limits, but it doesn't really matter. Surge's first two Pokemon are hit with a single dig. Raichu is magnitude 7'd, he heals, and then magnitude 9'd. Talk about easy, after which Diglett evolves just a few levels past the level cap. This is in time for Erika, not that it'll make much difference. My main concern is her Giga Drain, which only has 5 PP. So Dugtrio's role is to waste as many as possible, and it ends up being 2, which is not great, but better than nothing. Rhyhorn then makes Victory Bell waste a third. That all ends up being pointless though, as a crit body slam from Nidoqueen, followed by Aerial Ace, knocked it out anyway, and she still had one more Giga Drain. I full heal the Queen on Tangela, who can't paralyze. We trade Giga Drain and Aerial Ace back and forth, both resorting to a heal at one point. With the super effective Aerial Ace, Queen ends up victorious. For Vileplume, the plan is again to wait out Giga Drain. The second Rhyhorn takes a hit and dies. Then it's up to King to stall with Dig. I don't have any more heals, unfortunately, but hiding under the ground like a chicken works perfectly well, making Vileplume run out of useful moves. At which point King comes out of the ground, does a few Mega Kicks, beating the last gym leader I was actually concerned about. Things should be quite a bit smoother from here on out. For Koga, I lead with the Rhyhorn who knows Rock Slide. His defenses should keep him alive just in case Coughing decides to blow up. And Rhyslide actually manages to do something useful, aside from just being a sacrifice. Good job there, man. Of course, I quickly pivot to Dugtrio when Muck makes an appearance. A few magnitudes, and a heal later, the Sludge is defeated. Rhyslide is toxic on the swap, but easily defeats the second Coughing, even getting a flinch. Wheezing is a bit more defensive though. With that toxic damage, Rhyslide just can't make it. Which is fine, I have a near identical Rhyhorn in the back, sans Rock Slide. He does have Rock Blast, which is good enough for me, even if I hate the 80% accuracy, which I 100% do. Soon after, the two Rhyhorns try to evolve, but Giovanni refuses to let them in this game, and I follow his lead. Once again, I lead with Rhyslide to do what he does best to Kadabra. Mr. Mime isn't as smooth, since he gets confused and knocked out. Again, I have a second Rhyhorn who can Rock Blast the Mime in 3 simple hits. Venomoth also gets a confusion, thanks to Psybeam, stalls for a bit, before being similarly crushed with 3 rocks. Last we have Alakazam. I tried a Horn Drill just for fun, and it clearly doesn't work. I didn't expect it to anyway. Dugtrio instead comes out to dig, avoiding a future sight in the process. He then magnitudes to take out Alakazam, no problem. Good thing I didn't have to resort to using my 2 Poison Mons here, that might not have gone as well. For Blaine, I could use any number of ground or rock moves, like King's Dig here, but thanks to Intimidate, that doesn't seem like the best option. Instead, let's Rain Dance and Surf, because why not? Growlithe, Ponyta, and Rapidash all succumb to the watery move. Arcanine does survive a hit, albeit barely, to fire a blast. It didn't help at all, of course, but he tried nonetheless. Now, the Viridian City Gym has a ton of trainers. Sure, many of them have ground types, but there's also plenty of fighting, for some reason, the occasional poison type, and even a normal Tauros. Either way, they tend to be a bit underleveled, making this a very easy gym to overcome. So it's taken a while, but Giovanni is now right back where he started. Good for him. Anyway, having got past Giovanni, Rhyslide and Horn still can't evolve, at least not until they learn Earthquake at level 52. Hopefully, I can use them a bit better now that they have evolved. With all 8 badges, it's finally time to see how Giovanni fares against the Elite Four. Lorelei is clearly an issue, but at least I have plenty of Mons to choose from. Dugtrio tries, and fails quite miserably, to defeat Dugong. King has Thunderbolt, which still takes a while, and he uses Sunny Day just in case Dugong wanted to surf. Didn't end up doing much though. Cloyster has crappy special defense at least. Now Slowbro starts to Amnesia and even yawns King, meaning it's time for a swap. A newly evolved Rhydon comes out and finds someone he can actually outspeed. Don't get too comfortable now, he's like the only one you can. As always, Jinx loves putting things to sleep. Even with that snooze, Queen very nearly defeats Jinx, but not quite. King gets his revenge with a Thunderbolt, hoping for a paralysis, followed by a kick. Lapras confuses him, clearly doesn't care about Sunny Day, and Ice Beams King. With the sun now up, there is a small chance that Rice Slide survives either Surf or Ice Beam. Lorelei instead opts to confuse him, costing her the battle, as Rice Slide does what he does best, Rock Slides. That was a close call there. This brings us to Bruno, where Dugtrio once again starts the battle. This time, he is able to defeat Amon, even getting Bruno to waste a heal. He trades Earthquakes with the second Onyx as well, knocking it out too. I was even surprised how much Earthquake did to Hitmonchan. That was quite a bit more than expected. Still, he dies, and Queen gets revenge by easily Aerial Acing Chan. Hitmonlee survives the first Aerial Ace, getting a crit Mega Kick. That's not cool. We call a timeout to both heal, at which point it's Queen's turn to get a crit. Last is Machamp. Aerial Ace doesn't do a ton of damage, even less so as Machamp bulk ups. Queen switches to using Thunderbolt, even getting a paralysis at one point, but it's not enough. At this HP, it's easy for King to end it all with a Surf. As expected, Bruno was easier than Lorelei. For Agatha, it's unfortunate all but one of her Poison Mons are immune to Giovanni's main type. This means that Queen relies on Shadow Ball. She takes a few Shadow Punches, defeating Gengar with a final Bolt. Haunter is one-shot with a crit. The second Gengar immediately hits a 55% accurate Hypnosis, so I take a turn to full restore. Queen and Gengar then trade Shadow Balls back and forth, with Queen being the obvious victor. Next we have Golbat. I use my final heal here, trying to allow Queen to beat Agatha all on her own, but with confusion damage, I don't want to waste any more time here. King is also confused on the swap, so this is not going great. Let's give Rhydon a chance, huh? He hits himself in confusion, no problem, and then proceeds to flinch. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. Actually, I got ahead of myself. It was 3 times. But 3 flinches in a row? That sucks. When he's right at death's door, he finally decides to be useful and hits a 3-time Rock Blast. 1 hit for every flinch. That bat gave me more trouble than the rest of Agatha's team put together. Of course, she still has an Arbok who Iron Tails Rhydon. No matter, Rice Slide finishes off the battle with a single Earthquake, defeating a surprisingly difficult trainer. This brings us to Lance, where Queen obviously thunderbolts the Gyarados right away. That was a good start. Rice Slide comes out to tank anything Aerodactyl can throw at him, responding with a Rock Slide. I did teach him Ice Beam, but with his super low special attack and a stab boost, Earthquake is simply a better move for Dragonair. Unless Ice Beam had frozen. That would have been nice. The second Dragonair outrages, and hangs on by a thread after Earthquake, meaning Rice Slide has met his maker. Queen outspeeds to avoid another outrage, and has her own Ice Beam. This brings us to Dragonite, who does hit an outrage, which was relatively weak, is outsped, and simply falls to 2 beams. Lance was surprisingly easy. I imagine the champion will be much harder. Rice Slide begins, you guessed it, with a Rock Slide. The other Rhydon somehow survives an Earthquake? There's like 1 HP there, man. Expecting a heal, I swap to King, who uses a quad effective Surf to take it out. For Alakazam, I pivot to Rhydon to avoid King getting Psychicked. Kazam almost survives with his Reflect, but Rhydon gets a crit Earthquake, bypassing that defense boost. That was a bit lucky, honestly. For Blastoise, I doubt he'll get a chance to attack, but in case he does, Rhydon goes for Horn Drill. Yeah, that's what I expected. Anyway, now it's time for King to Thunderbolt. He avoids the first Hydro Pump, but thanks to a Citrus Berry, Blastoise survives a dual Thunderbolt and then connects with Hydro Pump. I try the same strategy with Queen after Gary heals, and it's working pretty well since she keeps paralyzing him. A few heals later, she is also Hydro Pumped though, while in the rain, so that's fun. Dugtrio's attack isn't incredible or anything, but even at this HP, he can Earthquake the turtle. This brings us to Executor, which is unfortunate because a single Giga Drain defeats Dugtrio, and my last Pokemon is the very slow Rice Slide. 1 more Giga Drain, and I lose, right at the championship battle. That's disappointing, but 1 loss is not the end of the world. Let's just try again, a bit faster this time. Rice Slide once again slides Pidgeot, but this time his Earthquake is strong enough to one-shot the opposing Rhydon. He even gets an Earthquake hit on Blastoise, who misses the first Hydro Pump and eats the berry. The second one does hit though. This time I send out the Queen first to try and get Blastoise down to low health and maybe give King a safer swap. Her Thunderbolts are not quite strong enough, while King, thanks to that full restore, makes quick work of Blastoise. Things are already going better than last time. For Alakazam, I swapped to the one Mon who outspeeds and survives Psychic. Dugtrio's Earthquake is not quite strong enough, though Alakazam uses Future Sight, not foreseeing his immediate own death as a result. It doesn't really do much, but Dugtrio hides underground to avoid that Future Sight and is whack-a-moled right when he pops up. Now that I have a king who isn't weak to grass, Executor is not a concern and is immediately crit Ice Beamed. That works for me. His final Pokemon is an Arcanine, who is easily defeated with 2 Surfs from King. Being the last gym leader, Giovanni has the largest Pokemon team, meaning it's not really a surprise he could overcome the other leaders and Elite Four members to become the champion. For him, it's a relatively small raise, but hey, it's still something. So Giovanni too could make it to the end. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for, the official Kanto gym leader ranking. In last place, we obviously have Brock. He managed to become the first gym leader, and that's it. After playing as the other gym leaders, I got curious and tried the Misty battle again, but now with one major difference. I went back to my Brock ROM hack from a year ago, watch that video if you haven't already, because it has some coding changes. Namely, it makes Sturdy act how it does in future generations. I wanted to see if with a useful Sturdy ability, I could make this work. It still took an awful lot of luck, but I found that it was doable, though not very reproducible, as it took many tries. Basically, it requires a crit rock throw at the start with Onix to defeat Staryu. Then, he has to hit the 80% accurate Screech. Thanks to Sturdy, he gets a chance to do that, unless he's confused. At this point, I tried a super potion just to see if I could get lucky or something, but nope, Starmie was a jerk. Anyway, the last thing is that magnitude needs to be a relatively high number. With that star's reduced defense, it's possible for it to be a one-shot without necessitating a crit, beating Misty in a way that was certainly impossible in a typical Gen 3 game. So I'm not going to count this. Brock will still be stuck as the first gym leader. I was just curious if this was at all doable. The answer is yes, if you cheat. In second to last place is Erika. She did really well to start, but struggled a bit in the late game, particularly against Blaine. He was simply too much for her, and she couldn't win. Now Surge struggled a bit at the start with Brock, but then it was smooth sailing, at least until Giovanni, who he did technically beat, but using a method I wasn't super proud of, putting him just shy of the Elite Four. Next is Blaine, who did make it all the way to the champion, but he struggled a decent amount, with a total of 15 whiteouts. Both Sabrina and Giovanni managed to become the champion with a single loss each, which is not bad, all things considered. The top 2 gym leaders, however, are Misty and Koga, both of whom became champions without a single loss. Even so, and perhaps this is my bias showing a bit, I would place Misty slightly above Koga. I mean, she only had 2 Pokemon the entire time, and I didn't have to rely on explosions to win. In my book, that makes her the strongest Kanto gym leader, though she is often overlooked because she appears so early in the game. And with that, the super long video is over. Thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube members. It's a great way to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next region.